Hello, hello, and welcome to this Crimson class at Tea on introducing Babalon, the goddess Babalon. And yeah, I'm really excited to be sharing this with you all. So I'm going to dive right in. Any questions as we go along, do feel free to pop them in the chat if you're here live, or in the comments below the replay if you're watching on the replay. I always set these with the intention that the magic, any magic that we do, holds anyone that chooses to step in later as well. So we're holding that space open for you if you drop out and come back, or if you're arriving on a replay rather than live. So welcome, welcome. I am honoured to have you here. So for those that don't know me, this is a class at the Enchanted Academy, which is an online school with a community, a free community for magical people, and I run magical classes in there. I am Halo Quin, and the short tagline is that I am a pagan author, a storyteller, a philosopher, and you'll occasionally see me use the title Doctor, and that's what that's referring to, and a practicing witch. So my email address and website are on there if you want to drop me a line afterwards if you've got any questions that you wanted to email me about or anything you want to get in touch with. So, a little note before we start for anyone who isn't familiar with Babalon. Some of the language and iconography used for Babalon can, of course, be a little bit provocative. And I say especially for goddess-loving pagans, right? Some of us who come from a certain direction may find it particularly provocative. But I invite you to listen without judgment. Know that I'm not going to put up any explicit images. And the terms that are used in these quotes and that are used in this class, know that Babalon claims these terms. She claims them. And not just because of all the ways they can be reinterpreted as positive, which we'll touch on as we go through, but also a little bit because of that discomfort, or maybe not even a little bit. The power in embracing that discomfort and embracing these words of, well, power, these challenging terms, can have a great deal of magic in them, just like some of us use the term witch for ourselves. We've reclaimed that, but we've also are continuously claiming that with all of the implications and responses that people have to it. So I invite you to sit with these terms, and if anything comes up for you, then just let it be and know that you don't have to use any language that you don't want to. All right. So who is Babalon? Babalon is, put it simply, a modern goddess with ancient roots. We can trace her lineage both mythopoetically through the deities and the powers and the magic that have come before the current, and or historically, or weaving them together. So exploring those key figures who shaped how we know her today, as well as the goddesses and such that came before her. Now, she has somewhat of a checkered history in the way that we know her today. And there is, of course, debate over who counts as a deity and who doesn't. Like, at what point does a powerful being become a deity? At what point do we say that someone is a goddess? And this is quite a big conversation within the Welsh pagan spaces around the deities that we have there, such as Rhiannon, who the story we have and the stories we have of Rhiannon is as mentioned as a human, well, an otherworldly lady. And nowadays we work with her as a goddess. So there's a whole big conversation on there. But the simple answer is, who is a goddess? Well, that's between you and them. I've worked with Babalon on and off for about 16 years, and gradually over that time, my work with her has become more in depth. So gradually that I didn't even really notice it happen. So as a pagan and a polytheist, I believe that deities are independent beings. Who is Babalon? She's a goddess. She is specifically a Thelemic goddess. So she comes in the form that we know her today from Thelema. This is where she took her form, her current form, within the religious current of Thelema, which was founded by Aleister Crowley. I'm not going to go into details about Thelema, so let's just very briefly, the key tenets, as it were: do what thou wilt, love is the law, love under will. What that means? There are many and intricate, detailed, nuanced conversations about those, but that might give you a little bit of a flavor. Something else that is a phrase that is often held in Thelema, quoted from Crowley, is every man and every woman is a star, which in the space that I work in that has Thelemic connections, we've translated that slightly to every man to every woman, including people who identify with neither or both. So the key text of Thelema is the Book of the Law, which was channeled by Crowley or dictated to him by his holy guardian angel, or depending on which point in the timeline you're listening to the story be told. It was channeled in 1904 after instruction from his wife, Rose Edith Kelly, or his then wife. Babalon is actually not named in this book, but the first part is a speech from Nuit, a starry goddess of the heavens who is known in the Egyptian mythology as Nut. Nut we'll see again later, but simply she is that vault of the sky studded with stars, and she swallows and births the sun every day, which means she is both heavenly and chthonic. In a grand scheme of things, she is the edge and the ground of being and holds that space of life and death. And this piece of information, well, we'll see it reoccur in our explorations of Babalon. There you go, there's a picture of Nut. I actually found this beautiful hand-painted papyrus in a charity shop, a thrift store for my American friends. And yeah, I just had to acquire her and put her on my wall. So there we go. There's Nut, or Nuit. So I could just tell you what Babalon is said to be a goddess of, right? But frankly, a list of dry qualities is quite boring, or at least in my opinion. If there's nothing to hang it on, then there's a question saying, were other people seeing the image? There you go. Can people see Nut on the screen now? Yes. So hopefully that's showing up okay. All right. So I like to root the qualities of a goddess. I like to show you where those are coming from, so you can get to know her, or other deities as well. So you can get to know them through learning about them, rather than just taking on faith what I've told you that they rule over or hold. And also, deities live in the world as we do. They have stories, they have an evolution. So while there isn't, strictly speaking, a myth of Babalon in the way that, for example, there is a myth of Rhiannon, she does have a story. The story of Babalon is a story of power, of visions, of divinity refusing to be forgotten. It's of people rebelling against oppression, of seeking the truth in reality or of reality or both, and finding liberation in their own way. So, once upon a time, an angry holy man, let's say he was a holy man, had a vision of a great woman upon a beast with 7 heads, no less. He wrote this vision down, an apocalyptic vision, and it has been printed so many times that her name echoes through every land and challenges him still. The name was Babalon. In the book of Revelations, John said the vision was a woman set upon a scarlet-coloured beast, arrayed in purple and scarlet colour and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hands, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Now I want to just draw your attention here to the cup that she holds. The cup is continuously a symbol that crops up in stories and discussions around Babylon. It's a fairly traditional symbol connected to many goddesses. But here we have a really interesting cup, really interesting holy grail, as it were, which is seen as being filled with, well, abominations and filth. There's something to be aware of just in this moment, and that is, of course, that this is a translation. So we are receiving this part of the story, this part of the vision, these words, via this translation. And as you'll see, the way Babylon has come to us has been influenced by this and shaped by this. Also notice that her name, written across her forehead, Mystery. She is the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. She is a mother to those people and those things that this man having this vision, or writing it down, didn't like. And this description, this vision, appears in the lust card in the tarot deck that was designed by Crowley, and I say designed by Crowley, in collaboration with Lady Frida Harris, who did all of the artwork. And so this is the vision that we see here, again, immortalized, imaged in tools of divination and connection, communication in the tarot. And you can see here that she's holding a cup. That cup is filled with, well, what is it? It looks to me like blood-colored light, like the glow of life. So you'll notice there's a difference in the spelling. Babalon the Great was a polemic, as it were, against John's political enemies. And as mentioned in the chat, yeah, that cup holds the blood of the saints, the life of the holy people who become saints when they die. So where did John get this inspiration from? Where did he get this vision? What shaped that vision that he had? This is a larger than human vision of a woman on a great beast. This is a being that comes at the end of the world. She is sexual, powerful, hungry, vibrant, unafraid. It's drawing on ancient goddess iconography. I like to call Inanna Babylon's great-grandma, sometimes great-great-great-grandma, depending on how many greats I feel like saying. Inanna was known as the Queen of Heaven. From 6,000 years ago, possibly, probably even longer, she was already established then. In ancient Sumer, Inanna was worshipped. She was connected to the morning and evening star, who we know as the planet Venus. And this star that rises in the morning sometimes and rises in the evening at other times, dances in the heavens and the underworld. Heavenly and chthonic. Inanna, to do the dry list of attributes, rules over love, sex, fertility, war, sovereignty, transformation. Her most famous story is her descent into the underworld, or at least her most famous story today. She's stripped of her power as she descends. She dies. And she's rescued by an agender being who seduces Ereshkigal, who is her sister and the goddess of death, the ruler of the underworld, and tricks Ereshkigal into freeing Inanna. In this way, Inanna gains knowledge of death. Now, there is also an interesting piece here that I learned recently, an interesting aspect to this story. In several of the versions of the old myths, when this being seduces Ereshkigal, tricks her, and then that trickery is discovered, Ereshkigal curses them and all like them to forever be outcast. And Inanna, in gratitude, blesses them in turn to always be magical and always be one of hers. So Inanna holds this space for people outside of the gender binary. She's also mentioned in stories, in myths, as being one who makes men into women and women into men. But I'm not going to go into that today. Suffice to say, there is a space for transformation and for crossing of what is sometimes assumed to be immutable boundaries. Inanna is also connected not just with death and destruction, but love. Right? In the Epic of Gilgamesh, where she's known as Ishtar, she tries to seduce King Gilgamesh. And this doesn't go very well, and many people die in her retaliation. So this holds both of those pieces. He, in fact, turns her down, saying that many of her lovers have died, and that might be a reference to the part of the way she managed to stay out of the underworld. But I digress. She also has many positive stories depicting her lustiness and connection to sex and pleasure, including the myth of how she learned all about sex, and hymns to her and her husband, Dumuzi. And I apologize if I am saying that incorrectly. I am not an ancient Mesopotamian scholar. So around 4,000 years ago from Istanbul, to give you just one example, we find an ancient love poem between Inanna and Dumuzi. And this is said to be probably have been recited at sacred marriages between kings and Inanna's priestesses. And one of the pieces in it, one of the quotes in it, obviously this is a translation by Samuel Noah Kramer, is, "Bridegroom, dear to my heart, goodly is your beauty, honey sweet. Lion, dear to my heart, goodly is your beauty, honey sweet." We see these pieces, the lion, the sweetness of honey, the beauty. Love. This is a plaque, now known as Queen of the Night. At one point, it was called the Burney Relief, and this is sometimes said to be representative of Inanna. Sometimes it's thought to be representative of Ereshkigal, and some modern folk consider it to be a representation of Lilith, though that seems slightly less likely. And you might be able to see in this image that the goddess figure is winged, standing proudly, nude, apart from her headdress and her necklace, her earrings, bracelets, so she's adorned with the feet of a bird, standing on lions and flanked by owls. So the lions, again, reoccurring. And they were actually traditionally an animal ruled by belonging to one of the animals of the deity, the goddess that we consider to be Venus. So lions were originally a Venusian animal. Nowadays we think of them as kingly, but previously in the ancient world, they were Venusian. Possibly because they're randy individuals. So, Inanna, we have an ancient, powerful goddess, the Queen of Heaven, who has authority over sex, death, war, love, life in some way, shape, or form. She's ultimately sovereign over herself. She goes out to gain these powers and to gain knowledge of these things. And she was absolutely worshipped by the people of the land and the cities that John of Patmos, known because that's where he says he's writing from, was decrying. So over time, Inanna evolved and changed. She became known as Ishtar. At a similar time, she was considered to be the counterpart of Astarte. They had slightly different qualities, but not by much. And later, Astarte's arrival in Cyprus gave rise to Aphrodite, born of the sea, who became syncretized with the Roman Venus, who has since been softened in our understanding over time. Over this time, over this evolution, and particularly in the last couple of thousand years that we have inherited, the Venusian goddesses went from being quite powerful to being considered just goddesses of love, maybe sex, and that's being reclaimed somewhat within pagan communities. But doesn't stop it being the case that those aspects of Inanna and her descendants were minimized. And this is important when we get to Babylon. So I just wanted to show you a couple of statues. We've got Ishtar and Aphrodite, very similar in some respects, not in others. You can see that evolution between them. Aphrodite is in fact holding a dove, which was, and remember, doves, also pigeons. They're the same species in mythologically speaking and pretty much biologically speaking. They're very, very, very close. So if you think about pigeons are messenger birds, they are good at homing, they're really good at learning things, but the dove was considered to be one of the birds of Aphrodite, of Venus, of Inanna. And we see the dove in that image of the holy dove, of the divinity and the divine feminine that comes down into the world, into manifestation. And there's a more perhaps famous image of Aphrodite and Aphrodite Venus in the arising from the ocean. A little less powerful looking at this point, right? Maybe she's just being sensual. So the reason I sort of bring this up is because over almost 2,000 years ago, this apocalyptic vision in Revelations was written. And John's disapproval of the power and the sexuality of the woman on the beast, ironically, meant that they've been retained for all of this time in a book that is probably in every hotel room drawer that the Gideons could get into, right? And I pose this question: do you think that a celebration of sexual prowess, of liberation, particularly female sexual prowess, and lust for life, and pagan power, would have been kept in the New Testament? In this way, by decrying these images, not only was John going, aren't they evil? Aren't they bad? But by doing that, he's also provided a shield to carry some of this power through to us. No problem, welcome back. There's also a very good point. The erotic Song of Solomon does live in the Old Testament, though that in itself can be quite controversial. Right. So, fast forward 1,500 years, and we find John Dee, who is court magician to the Queen, and his scrying partner, Edward Kelly, enacting a series of rituals to explore the subtle layers of reality, the ethers, right? And in one, they encounter a woman who called herself the Daughter of Fortitude. And she gives this beautiful speech, which is known as the Daughter of Fortitude speech among Thelemic circles. And here's just a quote from it. Happy is he that embraceth me, for in the night season I am sweet, and in the day full of pleasure. My company is a harmony of many symbols, and my lips sweeter than health itself. I am a harlot for such as ravish me, and a virgin with such as know me not. Again, here we've got this interesting aspect of the language, right? The mother of harlots, the harlots for such as ravish me. And there's a piece here in harlots being women who own their own sexuality. Someone who sells sex owns that to sell. Obviously, we've got to be aware that there are many cases where that is not the case, and that there is human trafficking and aspects of all of that horrible, horrible stuff going on. Not talking about that in this. This is talking about someone who owns their own sexuality and can give it as they choose. At least that's how many people interpret it. And of course, the old word virgin, owned by oneself. And there's something as well, remember that term abominations from the Bible was originally written in Greek. So there's some interesting nuances there. I just today encountered someone talking about it and saying that the word that it was translated from may be closer to the word taboo, but I haven't had a chance to dive into that yet. So I will be doing more research on that. Because if Babylon is holding a cup of those things that are taboo for John of Patmos, then what does that mean? What is that holding? Transgression, crossing of boundaries, moving outside, and that outsider nature. So 350 years after that, we get Aleister Crowley, who I have somewhat tongue-in-cheek summarized as rebel magician, bad boy, and queer seeker of true will. Again, I'm not going to go into Crowley at this point in any depth, but he repeated Dean Kelly's experiment in 1909 with his lover and magical partner, Victor Neuberg. So not with his wife anymore, and found that the goddess was still there, waiting. In this documentation of that vision, of that working, there is this beautiful praise of her. Beautiful art thou, O Babylon, and desirable, for thou hast given thyself to everything that liveth, and thy weakness hath subdued their strength. For in that union thou didst understand. Therefore art thou called understanding, O Babylon, lady of the night. So you can hear in there these pieces: beauty, desirable, giving. And there's this word, and thy weakness hath subdued thy strength, suggesting that it isn't weakness at all. It's something that he is describing as weakness that may conventionally be described as weakness, such as softness or receptivity, but is actually subduing and overcoming. For in that union thou didst understand. That word understanding, if we go back to that vision in Revelations, she was called mystery. Here, she's being called understanding. This links her to the Kabbalistic tree of life in the Golden Dawn Hermetic model of Bina, called the divine mother principle, Saturn, this point at which, just before we start descending from the transcendent into the immanent, from the beyond form and the potential into the manifest. Understanding. So many pieces in here. So, inspired by revelations, Crowley began to subvert this image of the woman on the beast. He made efforts to reclaim the terms, such as whore, mother of abominations, and holy harlot, and translate them into terms of power and liberation. And this, in and of itself, tells you something about the magic of Babalon. And you might have noticed the two different spellings. So in a later vision, there was an amending of the spelling Babalon with a Y to Babalon with an A. And Crowley codified that for numerological reasons and because vision, but also, interestingly, in D. and Kelly's language of the angels, Enochian, Babalon, the word, means wicked. Remember that. We'll come back to it. But that's her history, or at least her history up until she took form as we know her. The story has actually only just begun. Some people argue that Crowley never truly understood Babalon, and perhaps because he was too much of a misogynist to see her in herself, in and of herself. But to his credit, he definitely kept trying, and he genuinely argued for the value and for the liberation, like sexual liberation of women and all of these different things. In his magical working, he says a lot of very powerful and empowering things. In his personal life, didn't always get it right. And so this may certainly shaped the way in which he interacted with and related to Babalon. But that didn't mean that he didn't open that gate for her to come to us. And the things that he tried, let's give him credit for the good that he did there. So in the past century, since then, many people have worked with Babalon, and several people have very famously written about her, such as rocket scientist Jack Parsons. We're almost at the end of the history lesson, don't worry. So Jack, originally John Whiteside Parsons, and this really confused me the first time I started coming across the name John Parsons. I say here, as we all must do, he began crafting his own rituals to connect with Babalon. He was a student of Crowley. He drew heavily on Crowley's work. That's where he learned originally. That's where he met Babalon. But he went his own way, and he approached the goddess more as if he were her servant and her partner and her lover. So she, in his writings and workings and approach, was more independent than many of the ways in which Crowley approached her, such as when we look at the Scarlet Women, who were considered to be, which was a title given to some of Crowley's female sex magic partners, by dint of them being his partner in these acts. Whereas Parsons gave that power, that role, and described it as actually being inherent to the people who held it themselves. So in a series of workings, he too channeled messages from Babalon. We're starting to see a theme, I hope. And I hope this is an experience that you've had. And that is that we don't need to just listen to what other people have said, that the goddess has said. We can talk to her ourselves. But still, this gives us a clue into her power. And this is, I really, really enjoy. I am thy lover, and I am with thee. My way is not in the solemn ways or in the reasoned ways, but in the wild, free way of the eagle, and the devious way of the serpent, and the oblique way of the factor unknown and unnumbered. But thou art beyond man and woman, my star is in thee, and thou shalt avail. My star is in thee. My way is in the wild, free way. the eagle. When I have given talks on Blodeuwedd, the woman made of flowers in Welsh mythology who is turned into an owl in the end. Spoiler, sorry. I talk about a thing in which I asked the question. She was described as a wicked woman and punished for it. But was she wicked? Or was she wild? And therefore outside of the bounds of conformity, constraint, convention. So there's a phrase that comes up in relation to Babalon. Woman girt with a sword. Like Crowley, Parsons described Babalon as a liberator. But rather than focusing on transcendence, Crowley was working with Babalon as that point at which when the magician travels up the tree of life and reaches the abyss, we are liberated then in order to reach those highest points, liberated from ego, from manifestness, manifestation, from life as an individuated being. It is that movement into transcendence, liberation from ego, right? Whereas Parsons, there's some of that, but there's also this piece of Babalon as a warrior woman, as a leader of revolution, as feminist, as empowering, and perhaps a goddess of witches. I did toy with that for a while. And I really appreciate that. The witch is the outsider, and Babalon is a goddess of outsiders and magic. So it's easy to see the idea of sexual liberation in modern depictions of Babalon. If you've seen any pictures and any descriptions of Babalon, like you'll see that sort of sexualized nature. If you think back to the card Lust, which in the Thoth deck is replacing the card Strength. The woman riding the lion, the feminine figure holding the lion. See the parallels. So you've got this sort of nude, ecstatic figure riding a beast named for desire. So Babalon is often considered as symbolic of sexual liberation, especially for women. And today that is moving into a broader space in many circles, that liberation for people, for women, for queer folk, for people with alternative sexualities, with these spaces. Historically, sexual liberation, I say this historically, right, at the beginning of the 1900s, where Crowley was sort of going, sexual liberation, free love, right? There was that thing of it, keeping it repressed, being very proper, like hiding these things. We still have a certain amount of that. So it was, sexual liberation was tied up in that freedom to do, to enjoy sex and pleasure. Remember, sexual liberation also includes the freedom to not do as well. So we've got that piece of, again, sovereignty over the self, the option to choose, the sword to say no, as well as the cup to choose to receive or to give from. So as a liberator, Babalon crosses boundaries and holds them. She gives the power to disagree, to change, to say no, to say yes as you choose. Of course, there's that issue that sometimes Babalon gets over-eroticized, like many of us do, without actually valuing the erotic. And that's something that is always worth being wary of. You see all the billboards with adverts based on the principle that sex sells. Yeah. Sex is sacred and is fine. Sexuality and desire are wonderful, life-affirming things when consenting adults, all of that choice piece is there, right? But presenting it, using it as a tool, yeah, having all those over-sexualized goddess statues can can be empowering for some people and can be very disempowering when it is devalued and used as, well, commodified marketability, right? So we're not talking about that. That's not what Babylon's about. Though she has been mistaken for that. She's reminding us that we get to enjoy what we enjoy. We get to enjoy our sexuality, our pleasure, our embodiment, our eroticism in whatever way that makes sense to us. Because if we don't enjoy it, then it's not eroticism, right? So I just wanted to also mention Marjorie Cameron, a poet, artist, actress, and elemental force of nature. And if you know anything about her history, you'll get that reference. So initially she was uninterested in Babalon, but Cameron's first husband was Jack Parsons during his Babalon workings. She in fact turned up on the evening after he'd just done a ritual to summon his elemental sex partner. So that's who he thought she was. She eventually declared herself to be an incarnation of Babalon. She was sometimes called a lunatic, and she may have been considered mad, but she deserves remembering as the Babalon work continues. And there is a rich seam of poetry and art and material from her, that a lot of which has been lost. But those threads are still there. And I say she was sometimes called a lunatic. She may or may not have actually been sectioned. So, you know, we tread that line in this space of magic and madness, where it's important to know yourself and know what is true for you, and to be really solid in that, in order to avoid that tipping into, especially if you have any proclivities towards it, that tipping into hallucinations and delusions that become impairments in your life. So take care of yourself in this work and in any work. There are later writers as well, of course, and there are more and more women and queer voices speaking on Babalon that you can explore. And yeah, so useful comment, lots of women who stepped outside of societal norms were institutionalized historically. So Marjorie, or Cameron as she preferred to be called, she actually died in 1995. She's relatively recent. And in her lifetime, people were being institutionalized. Women were being institutionalized for being too sexual. Absolutely true. So let's bear that in mind. Let's hold that peace and recognize that this is one of the reasons that the liberation of sexuality and the permission to enjoy the pleasure of being alive that Babalon holds is really powerful, really important, recently and still now, because our society has been shaped by that and still carries those threads, even if it seems like it's, or even if it is much less so. So Crowley eventually noted that Babalon was the secret name of Nuit, the star goddess, i.e. Queen of Heaven. Remember Nut that we saw earlier? Babalon was also often described as a gateway, as that point of crossing the abyss from manifest into unmanifest worlds. And sometimes, as I mentioned earlier, her cup is talked about as the space where, if you're traveling up towards the divine, up towards transcendence, which some people consider to be the goal of any spiritual or magical path, not all, then at that point where you meet that gap, that gateway, that space between the manifest and the potential, the unmanifest, that's where her cup is said to rest, and you pour your life out into it. But it's also the point at which that divine, that spirit comes down, the potential moves into the manifest and pours out from her cup. I wanted to say something about that. Oh, yes. I also wanted to mention Kenneth Grant, who wrote about Babylon and was downstream of Crowley, right? And his writing's quite dense and poetic and multifaceted. He had an interesting take on the primacy and primal nature of that which he considered the divine feminine as being the power that is before and the truth that is before the manifest, and the manifest world being an illusion, and Babylon holding that gate, right? And also Choronzon, but I'm not getting into that now. So we've got this piece then of Babylon bringing into life and being that space of moving out of life, of dissolution and coming together. And in the Gnostic Creed, which is in the Gnostic Mass, she is described as the earth, mother of us all. So what does it mean to be earthly? It means embodied, manifest, alive, mortal, of the red earth, of the soil, of flesh and blood. I mean, I think this is the wickedness that John was decrying in his vision of Babylon, right? The sin, the original sin of being born, of birth, of coming into the world, the eating of the tree of knowledge and ending up in the world. It's the wickedness of flesh and of living free and whole, embracing that part of ourselves. Which really, it's no wickedness at all. It's just wildness in the best of ways. So the statue that I have that I use for my Babylon statue on my altar is actually a Gaia statue. Technically speaking, it was designed as a Gaia statue and has these vines coiling up her. When I saw her in that pose with that connection to the earth, but also that uprightness, that space which could be ecstasy or could be peace or both. It is that moment of both surrender and reception, receiving. Then we've got that place, and I'm like, that's for me is perfect as a representation of Babylon. So I wanted to share that with you. So we are at the end or the beginning of Babylon's story. And from these threads, we can extract the list of qualities from Inanna and that lineage. Babylon is a goddess of sex, of desire, of love and lust, of life and death, earth and embodiment, and liberation, transformation, crossing boundaries, self-sovereignty, all of those things of choosing for oneself, right? Of being fully alive. And this is all those Venusian things. If we look at that space of the name Babylon being wicked and those titles and terms of the mother of harlots and abominations, the mystery holding the cup of, well, if we think back, it was the filth of fornications, the blood of saints, life, right? It's all of that messiness and joy and sorrow of life. So we've got these pieces then about the transgression, about facing and breaking taboos, embracing embodiment, about pleasure and pain and life and death. There's both that piece of dissolving the ego as we cross the abyss and total acceptance alongside total sovereignty. Do you know what? I thought I was being really, really organized by having notes. And I've managed to put one of my... Oh, well, never mind. It was something that I know I wrote down that I wanted to share with you, but I'm sure we've already covered it. It's here, it's this piece in embracing embodiment in that earthliness, in being wild. And if you remember, think back to wild plants, wild animals. When I say wild, I'm not talking about the vicious and dangerous notion of wildness that we have from the context of civilization is the important bit and law and order must be. And therefore, anything that is wild is outside of that. But rather, that wildness of freedom, the wildness of weeds, of wildflowers, of birds caring for each other, of swans that mate for life, of otters holding hands, swimming in the river, holding hands so they don't float apart, of elephants that move across the landscape and hold funerals for their dead, of wolves that care for their young and their elderly. All of these aspects of wildness is being allowed to be. So Babalon in the service of love, these pieces, being wholly yourself regardless of disapproval, claiming that name for yourself, even if other people are like, that's a bad name. Yeah, I'm a witch. I'm using it in a modern term, in a modern way. And some people go, oh, I don't like that. And that's okay. Following your true, or one might say divine will, living in the world, intoxicated by that cup of wine of life, all of life's messy glory. And this is something to go back to that thing about Crowley perhaps not understanding Babalon fully. Babalon as life and as part of our life is always going to be understood in relation and in relationship, through our relationship with her. As Babalon calls you to manifest fully as yourself and to remember your divine self, both transcendent and immanent, any understanding of her must be relational. She'll be with you in ways that challenge you to grow, or that nurture you if that's what you need to be whole. She comes to you and she is with you, not with the soft, everything's okay, sweet candy floss and harp music love, but with the tough love of, all right, this is what you need, and I'll be with you every step of the way. So yeah, Crowley understood Babalon in relation, as must each of us. And I do find it amusing, ironic, delicious. That word, understanding. Babalon is in the understanding and in the relating. So before we move into our ritual, I just want to share with you Babalon's symbols include the cup or the grail, remember? Acceptance and creation, receiving and giving, the cup in which intoxication is held, and the cup in which we pour our lives at the end. The sword, boundaries and sovereignty. The lion and the dove, both Venusian animals. Venus, the planet, and the seven-pointed star, so seven being a number of Venus. Roses, and all flowers really, but all flowers that connect with love, life, death. Roses really powerfully do this, particularly red roses. The blossom, the thorn, and their roots that feed on, especially one of the best things you can feed roses to nourish them is blood. Red, purple, gold, and jewels, luxuriousness, sexy clothes, things that feel like life, like that erotic, pleasurable nature to you. Nudity, those things that are delicious and remind you of the deliciousness of life. Different people, this will be different things. So I haven't listed like specific sexy clothes. Lacy lingerie, well, that's good for some people, but leather's better for others, right? Or denim and flannel shirts. Whatever floats your boat and doesn't sink your ship, I suppose should be the other part of that saying. So all of these pieces, right? We've got the red earth, the flesh, the blood. And this is the blood of birth, of menstruation, of living, of life, of death, the blood that is within us, the blood that is within life itself. A little picture of a couple of examples of my tools that I use with Babalon. That's a copper-coloured goblet filled with dried rose petals from Babalon rituals. It's actually a letter opener that I found in a charity shop when I went out with a quest, was specifically out looking for tools, like set that intention and called them to me, and found this tool with that symbol of love and loyalty and sovereignty on it, and it's gold coloured, which I adore. And my little tiny book that I'm adding prayers and rituals to with her seal, the seal that was created by Crowley, based on the seven-pointed star, with the shape in the center, which my brain is refusing to give me the name of right this second, and the formula for sevens, how you turn 7 sevens into 156, which is said to be her number. So her symbols also include the womb and the tomb, the dirt and the dust of the earth, the blood and wine, the intoxication of life, all the symbols of love and lust, kinky tools and toys, sexy clothes, makeup, and sackcloth asceticism. As the mother of monsters, which is the way that I like to phrase it, because there's that sociological description of the other as monsters in relation to the acceptable, this is socially acceptable. There's this idea of the symbols of monsters and the way in which some of us that are othered like to, or we do, identify with certain of the characters and fictional and mythological creatures which are considered to be monsters because of the relationship with the other. And so here we've got the mother of harlots and abominations. I'm a bit of a fan of alliteration, so I like to incorporate all of this sense in the sense of the mother of monsters. So this is the mothers of outcasts and the othered, such as those outcast by nature of being outside of the gender binary, or being heretics, or being rebels, or those who are disabled or different to differenced, or othered. All of these pieces, right? She holds that space for all of us. So here's that seal, Babalon seal, designed by Aleister Crowley that I was just describing. And I apologize for the pixelation on it. So you can see there's that 7-pointed shape. And there is another way of doing a 7-pointed star. So this is the more open, spaced one. And the geometry of the way in which the lines are drawn has magical significance, but don't ask me what it is, because that's not my area of expertise. There is this space here then of that openness, and you can almost see a shape of the cup in that, depending on how you squint. So I want to share with you a ritual. And I say a ritual, this is a simple magic working. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you all of the slides all the way through so you can see what we're going to do and actually have a look at some of the language, and I'll talk you through what the steps are going to be. Okay. So if you don't want to actively join in, then I invite you to stay and listen, to hold space for this magic, to just hold the space of that circle. If there's any aspect of this that you're like, I don't want to say that, then feel free not to say it. And that can be all of it. You don't have to say anything at all. So what I'm going to invite you to do is, if you've got a candle, like to get yourself comfortable, and if you've got a candle, get that ready. And then at the start, we'll do a short energetic exercise and visualization. This will be grounding, centering, to get you into the space and to feel into the sacred space that's going to hold us. We'll then invoke Babalon together. And I've got an invocation here that I've written. I'll show you again in a second. And then we will move into chanting her name, gazing at her seal and feeling her presence. So we'll have about 5 minutes in that space for you to tune into her, to see how it feels to be in her presence, to communicate with her if you wish, to just listen, to ask any questions, or just say hi. Or you can just hold the space for other people to do that if you'd prefer. So by holding that space, I mean that set your intention that you are holding that space, holding the boundary for that sacred space for the other people that are present now and on the replay. Remember, we're going through outside of time with this. And then we'll thank her, say farewell, and close. So I'll guide you through that beginning exercise. And then here's our invocation. So I'll read it to you now. And as I say, you can read it with me when we start, not now, although you can read it through with me if you like. And if there's any other terms in there that you're like, I'm absolutely not going to say that, you don't have to. But you can also have a go at saying those words, knowing that they are terms that Babalon claims, and sitting with any discomfort if there is any. Maybe there isn't, maybe you love all language. So this is based on my Crimson Craft invocation to the divine lovers. I've adapted it for Babalon here. A breath of bliss caught upon the tongue. We welcome you, invite you, divine lover, come. Red goddess dancing, spinning like the sun. Liberator, holy harlot, mother monster, come. Monster mother, come. Bless our hearts, our minds, our skin, with touch of pleasure welcomed in. In your honor we begin. Babalon, come. So just have a think now if there's any bit of that you're going to want to skip over, or if you just want to listen, that's absolutely fine. Just make a note of that for yourself. Then together we'll begin chanting Babalon. So the rhythm for this, I will set it. I will be on the audio so that you can hear me, so that you can follow my rhythm, and you can stay on mute in order to chant in your own space and not worry about being heard. And that means that you can drop in and out as you like, or you can come on vocals, but if you do, the sound will drop in and out, so it will be a little bit more chaotic. So as we're chanting, We'll gaze upon her seal, feel her presence, and notice what message she has for you. So you can see in these slides, I've got the prompts before we get there. So we'll chant and we'll take a few minutes. And then when that time is done, I will prompt you verbally and say, okay. And now you feel Babylon's presence begin to fade. And then we will devoke. And here is the prayer that I've written to devoke or to say farewell. Babylon, holy lover, blessed lazy lust, you who are the fertile earth and the final dust, liberator, holy harlot, monster mother, love, dancing in the center, below and above. Thank you for your presence. May we know you better in the days to come. For now, we bid you farewell, Babylon. And I'll leave a moment for you to say that in whatever way you wish. So you can make your own request, whether that is, may I know you better in the days to come, may we draw closer, or may our work be done for now. However, whatever it is that you want to request, if you want to go, no, I'm done with this, thank you, it was nice to meet you, but that's enough for the moment. You are absolutely welcome to do that as well. Okay. And then the rite is done. Okay, so any questions before we begin? Do feel free to pop them in the chat. I take a sip of tea and I invite you to get yourself comfortable. Yeah, okay. All right. So make sure that you've got somewhere safe to put your candle when it's lit, if you've got a candle. And if you haven't, then know that I am lighting a flame for you here, and that light will travel across wires and Wi-Fi time space to hold you as well. Okay, so take a moment to get yourself comfortable. Take a nice breath. And as you breathe out, let it just be a little bit longer, a little bit slower, a little bit softer than usual. Breathe in a way that is comfortable for you. Let it be easy and relaxed. Let it be comfortable. Let each breath take you more deeply into relaxation. As you breathe in, imagine that you are gathering yourself to the here and now, gathering yourself into this moment. And with every breath out, let yourself relax down. Imagine that you are sinking down, relaxing down, resting down, to be held by the earth. As you breathe in, gather yourself, imagine all of your thoughts, the things you've been up to, all the things that you've learned, all the wheres and whys and whats that your attention is on. Bring that to the here and now. And as you breathe out, allow yourself, feel yourself sinking down and resting upon the earth. Feel the earth and that pressure between you in your chair or the floor or the bed or the sofa or wherever it is you are, that earthly thing beneath you. With each breath, come to the here and now. Breathe out and sink down, feeling yourself held by the earth, feeling it support you. On your next breath, as you breathe out, imagine yourself, feel yourself rooting down into the earth. Perhaps this is like actual roots of a tree or a plant. Perhaps it is more a feeling of connection. Perhaps you feel a thread or an anchor sinking down. With each breath, let that connection strengthen and grow. Feel that support of the earth holding you. Strength of the earth. The rich, fertile soil made of dust and bones and stones. The darkness of the caves beneath. The rocks beneath, from which life emerges and to which life returns. One more breath, out and down, connecting in with this strength, this support, this creative, and receiving power. On your next breath in, imagine that strength, that support, that power of the earth rising up through your roots, up through your connection to it. And let it move up into your space to surround you, to hold you, or flow up within you to strengthen you from inside. Let it flow up your bones, strengthening you, holding you. Breathe up, breathe in that rich earth energy, that power. And know that you are a child of the earth. You are a child of Babalon. And as you breathe in that strength and support the gifts of the earth, begin to turn your awareness up to the sky. And as you breathe out on your next breath, imagine your connection reaching up like branches, like a cord, like a column of light, however you see it or feel it or know it. Imagine it is rising up into the heavens, up into that wide expanse, up through the roof of whatever building you are in, through the atmosphere, through the sky, through the clouds, the dark, the light, up out into the space where the stars are. Up high, high into that starry sky beyond. Up high, high into the light of the heavens. With every breath, you reach up higher into that magic, into that gift, into the azure vault, the deep blue body of the goddess of the stars, Nuit, Nut, Queen of Heaven, who arches over us. And feel yourself Connect up into the starlight that she holds within her body. Stars in the sky, through which all the wisdom and the guidance, all the stories of the ages have been woven by us and those who came before us, by immortals and by gods, by all of life, by the stars themselves. On your next breath in, feel that light, that guidance, that wisdom of the stars and the body of Nuit begin to flow down through your connection to them, down through your connection to the sky, pouring down over you, over your body, over your space, into your body, into your space, to meet the earth within you. For you are a child of the starry sky. Blessed by the star goddess herself, who holds the edges and transforms, transmutes, transcends all boundaries. And here and now, feel where the star and the earth, the sky and the soil, where they meet within you. In that place that they meet within you, in your space, notice love, love, that power that brings together, love, that calls into life, into potential, into manifestation, love, that calls you into all that you can be, love, unbounded, unbridled, wild, love, calling you to truth of yourself, calling you to your true, your divine will, calling you to all that you are and all that you can be and all that you ever have been. Love, where the earth and the sky meet, love grows. And with every breath, with every whisper of that word, love, know that it grows stronger and brighter. It shines out from you. It shines out from your space. Love grows and glows, softening and warming and healing and strengthening and opening, shining out. Love shines through all things, so it shines in as well. And where that light shines out from you, that love shines out from you, it shines in from the world. And where those points meet, the magic of the star goddess of Nuit, who holds the edges, the circumference of all, is. I light this candle in the name of love, the earth and the sky, all of life. Let this light shine out and hold our circle, our crimson circle of love, our circle of magic, held by the sweet hands of Nuit, of Babalon. Let this light shine across wires and Wi-Fi, time and space, my heart to your heart to our hearts. May we all be held in this circle together. Together in this space, we invite Babalon. A breath of bliss caught upon the tongue. We welcome you, invite you, divine lover, come. Red goddess dancing, spinning like the sun. Liberator, holy harlot, monster mother, come. Bless our hearts, our minds, our skin, with touch of pleasure welcomed in. In your honor we begin. Babalon, come. Babalon, Babalon, come. Together, we chant her name as a spell, as an invocation, as an offering of praise. To feel her magic, her presence. And join me in chanting her name and gaze upon her seal. And just notice how you feel, notice her presence, notice what message she has for you, what questions you have for her. Or if you just want to be present in the cup of Babalon, in this circle. Babalon, 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 Babalon. It is time to say farewell, to slowly breathe. Breathe in this presence. Let any messages, wisdom, or understanding that arose be gathered into your bones, into your heart. Take a few breaths to finish. Now it is time to say farewell. Time was brief. Send your gratitude to Babalon. Know that if you choose, you can continue this conversation in your dreams, at your altar, in between every heartbeat. For now, we say our closing prayer in praise, in thanks. Babalon, holy lover, blessed lady lust, you who are the fertile earth and the final dust, liberator, holy harlot, monster mother, love, dancing in the center, below and above. Feel into what you would ask of her, your request in this time. Whether it's the same as what I have written here, or your own words. Thank you for your presence. May we know you better in the days to come. For now, we bid farewell, Babalon. Remember your connection to the earth and the sky. Know that connection is always there. Feel into the love that flows through where they meet through all things, and that edge, that boundary, that circumference of all that holds our space. And send love and gratitude to Babalon for being present with us today. Love and gratitude to Nuit for holding this space. Love and gratitude to all those who guide and brought you here. Love and gratitude to your deep divine selves. Breathe in, gather in anything that you need. Breathe out, release anything that you do not. If you feel like you have too much energy, let it rest down into the earth or sink back into the stars. If you feel like you need a little more strength, breathe it up. A little more guidance, breathe it down. A little more love, breathe it in. Take one more breath to let all things be balanced within you as they need to be. And as this light, this flame dies down in the manifest realm, know that it is ever lit between the worlds, in our hearts, and in the cup of Babalon. May blessings be between us now and always. Hail and thank you, Babalon. The rite is done. I invite you to take a moment to ground, to make any notes, have some water or some tea. If you've got a snack, have some snacks. I'm loving the comments in the thank yous in the chats. I'm going to read this out loud. Thank you for these beautiful reminders of our sexuality and erotic nature, embracing our true nature, despite a world full of negativity, intolerance, and judgment. Loving my true, wild nature and holding it and you close to me. Welcome to your light, your guidance, strength, wisdom. Help my love shine out into the world. Now I bid you a fond farewell, Babalon. Beautiful. Thank you. So I'd love to hear from you in the chat or in the comments if you're here on the replay. How did that feel? We'll take, after the recording, I will stick around. I'd love to check in with you and hear from those of you that are here live, if there's anything you'd like to share or anything you'd like to ask. But for now, I just want to finish up with some next steps. And I'm still watching the chat, so thank you. So your next steps, if you would like to continue working with Babalon to deepen this relationship, is to consider creating a shrine for Babalon, or you might call it an altar. This can be as simple as a picture on the wall or a vase with a red rose in it, a candle on a shelf, or a whole altar dedicated to her. I invite you to write a short prayer to her or use one that you find and love. You can use one of the ones from today and to say it each day, or to simply chant her name with longing and desire and love. 7 times is a beautiful number for the Venus. 11 times is a good number for Babalon as well. Make sure that you are in the Enchanted Academy community to get hold of the slides when I post the replay as well. If you want to check over anything or follow up on the list of resources, I'll be sharing a list of references and resources and where all this information came from. So come and join the community and join the conversation there. Thank you to everyone saying thank you in the chat. And I also have an invitation for you and a special offer, so stick around. In 2026, all being well, my book on Babalon will be released. It is an introductory book. It's a pagan portal, so it's 25,000 words. Very, very diddy, right? So it's pocket-sized. So I'm squeezing a lot into it. And that means that there's going to be things that don't make it in. But if you feel called to work with Babalon this year, I would love to invite you to work with me, to join me through the rituals and workings that I'm including in that book and all of the bits and pieces that I can't fit in there as a guided journey in like monthly Babalon circles. Now, you remember I mentioned I like alliteration. So Babylon circles are for you if you feel drawn to Babylon, but you're not sure where to start. And if you've worked with Babylon before and you want to deepen your journey in our Crimson community, and a gentle, queer, inclusive, heart-centered approach calls to you. If you have got a deep relationship with Babylon, you would be very, very welcome, because we will learn from each other, because each of us encounter her in different ways through our relationship with her. And where those understandings overlap illuminates that thread, that core that is underneath. And where they don't, illuminates who we are in relation to her current and her magic and her. And here's that alliteration: Babylon Circles and Book Club. BC, BC. So this is also an opportunity to connect with other people doing this work. I'm going to be sharing material, as I said, that won't fit in the final book, and extra resources and things that I find along the way, or have found along the way. And you'll get to explore a relationship with Babylon and her lineage in ways inspired by many sources with that support. So in this, you'll find monthly magical circles on Zoom. This is practical stuff. There will be replays in the forum so that you can work Babylon magic in the community. Our ritual today was very short, so these circles will be more focused on the magic and less on the information. And then there'll be space in the book club, which will be asynchronous and text-based posts that you can explore and have conversations. And if you want to hop on a Zoom chat, if everyone wants to get together and talk about something specific, then we absolutely can. So you'll get to read it, my book, before it's released. And there's behind the scenes extras as well. So if you're already in the Enchanted Circle, these are included. And if you're interested, you're curious about the Enchanted Circle, then check out all the stuff that's going on in there at haloquin.net/T. And I do offer scholarships. If you need a scholarship, just ask. But if you just want to come for a standalone membership, right, just for these, if you're not already in there and you just want to come along for the Babylon stuff, then our first circle will be on Monday, 7th of July, same time as tonight. And before that, then you can either sign up for £100 for a whole year or £10 a month. And you can join at the link haloquin.net/T. So while there will be replays all the way through, if you join late or later on in the year, you'll be able to access the replays. Obviously, coming along live means that you'll get to interact and ask questions off camera as well. Because as I say, I always try and make sure that we've got space off camera. So please, if you've enjoyed this, if you want to work more deeply with Babylon and you enjoy my approach, then this space is for you. So thank you. Please come and join me. And if that's not for you, then the conversation is ongoing in the Enchanted Academy in the free forum as well. So not so much in detail about Babylon, but there's loads of stuff in there that you can come and join us for. And thank you so much for joining me, for connecting with Babylon, for diving deep into this introduction. And I hope to see you in the Babylon circles. Go to haloquin.net/T, click the link in the chat or in the description, and join me for some deep, deep magic. I am very excited to do this with you all. Thank you.